Welcome back. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. My guest today is author and journalist Rupa Subramanya. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion training and its impact on business. Rupa, let's focus on the tragic case of the death of Principal Richard Bilkszto after a lawsuit against the Toronto School Board, where he charged that the outside consultant Kiki Ojo-Thompson, founder of the Kojo Institute, harassed him during training when he took issue with her description of Canada being much more racist than the United States. Rupa, you've written extensively. Could you tell us about Richard's story for those who have not heard of the incident?
Thanks, Jocelyn. So it's a very tragic story that resulted in his suicide almost exactly a month ago. Richard Bilkszto was a lifelong educator. His passion was always teaching, education. He'd been a school principal, vice principal, and he dedicated his life to teaching, especially teaching individuals, kids and young adults from very underprivileged and marginalized backgrounds. He taught in Buffalo, New York, at schools there where there was a substantial African American population. These are people who come from, again, very, very poor and underprivileged backgrounds. And he did that kind of teaching here in Ontario, in Toronto. And by all accounts, he was celebrated as an educator. He had received many awards. He was, he had received recognition for his expertise in young adult education. And he was a leader in education by all accounts, based on all of the conversations I've had with people who knew him and things I've read about him. In 2021, the Toronto District School Board, the country's largest school board, hired a diversity, equity, inclusion consultancy called the Kojo Institute, and its CEO, Kiki Ojo-Thompson, was hired to preside over the training. She was the trainer, and as a principal. Now, at this point, Richard had retired. He retired from teaching in 2019, but he loved teaching so much, and he was so incredibly appreciated by the teaching community that they wanted him back as a supply principal in 2020, and then they wanted him again back in 2020 in 2021, and he agreed because this is what he absolutely loved doing, even though he was retired. So he went to the training session, not necessarily because he had to go, but it was because he was always looking to improve himself professionally. So he went there in good faith. It's important to keep in mind that Richard Bilkszto was, he's being painted as some kind of far-right individual in sections of the legacy media, but he was not. He was very much on the left. He was very much a progressive. He was gay. He was believed in things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so there were 4 sessions. The first session, I believe, was in April 19th or 16th, 2021. I don't think anything happened in that session, but it all began to unravel April 26th, 2021, where Kiki Ojo-Thompson, the CEO of Kojo Institute, made this bold claim that Canada is a bastion of white supremacy, and that the racism that Black people in Canada face here is worse than anything they would experience in the U.S. And Richard did what I would have done, or many of us would have wanted to push against that. And so that's exactly what he did. He stood up and he said, "This is all happening on Zoom, by the way." So he says, "Look, I want to push against that a little bit. I want to challenge that a bit." And he's doing all of this politely. There's not the slightest hint of him being aggressive or anything like that. He's just marshaling facts. He's saying, I disagree with you, and here is why. We have a public healthcare system that is accessible to everybody. We have a public education system that everybody has access to. We have, sure, we have problems. Does racism exist in Canada? Of course it does. Do we have, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. And so I'm paraphrasing what he said here, and that's when Kiki Ojo Thompson, takes offense at what he's saying, and she
So,
really
Rupa,
starts.
I'm just going to stop you there because we've got a commercial more on this topic when we get back.